Update: Japan's Fukushima nuclear plant worse than ever, now affecting the USA. Topkats Pride, bringing to you the unusual but factual and oftentimes ignored and controversial wild news. Keeping you in the know while you're on the go. And now, your wild news reporter, Q. Pate. March 11th, 2011. Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant is tremendously damaged by a 9.0 magnitude earthquake, which leads to a tsunami striking the northeastern coastline location of the Japanese island. The little, now infamous town, Fukushima, is about 180 miles or 290 kilometers by car north of Tokyo, Japan. Here during the second week of February 2017, the Fukushima nuclear power plant is now, again, making international mainstream news headlines. This is because of the dire emergency situation at the nuclear plant, still being horrifically ongoing since the catastrophe first occurred on March 11th, 2011. But now, however, the prevailing atmospheric and environmental problems of years at this point, 6 years on March 11th, 2017 to be exact, has now become many, many times worse.
Well, breaking right now, radiation levels inside a Fukushima nuclear power plant damaged by that tsunami nearly 6 years ago is now at their highest point since that disaster. And experts believe melted fuel is leaking inside the plant almost daily, causing radiation levels high enough to kill a human being with just brief exposure. The latest readings now posing a serious challenge as officials prepare to dismantle the facility. Adam Housley, who covered that triple meltdown in Fukushima back in 2011, is following the story, and he joins us live with more. Adam?
Yeah, Jenna, hard to believe it's been nearly 6 years. And when we initially covered that, it was that great video that came in that really showed the destruction that Japan had to endure from the earthquake and the tsunami. But no one knew at the time the growing threat, which today continues to only get worse. That was the tsunami that took out the cooling system at Fukushima that basically caused the meltdown of 3 reactors that continues to this day. In fact, we're told the most recent numbers due to those meltdowns that nearly 300 tons of radioactive water is dumped into the Pacific Ocean each and every day. The radiation levels, in fact, inside are now the highest level since 2011. Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, which is in charge of this area, reports that the radiation level has reached 530 sieverts per hour. To give you an example, it used to be 73 per hour. For people that don't know this stuff, let's put it into very simple terms. 4 sieverts can kill a handful of people. Right now, 530 per hour are being detected there. According to scientists, that's unimaginable radiation levels. A robot was sent in. It only lasted an hour before radiation took it out, basically ruined it. It found a 6-foot gaping hole inside that somehow has to be patched. Now, due to this high level of radiation, the company assures the public everything will be fine, but we've heard this information from Japan before. There's been criticism even back 6 years ago when this first happened that Japan wasn't giving all the information out. We do know this. They say it will take at least $300 billion and 4 decades to finally fix this area. It's the worst since the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Again, also, we're getting more numbers coming in, Jenna. To keep this in mind as well, they say that right now there's still radiation being detected off the coast of California and Oregon. Now, it's very small, but the worry is with 300 tons of radioactive water going in every day to the Pacific, what is that doing to the Pacific Ocean, Jenna?
Wow, it's a crazy story, Adam. And I remember all your reporting. You did such a great job there. You posted all the photos that you took and the time that you spent in Japan.
Right.
From your experience there on the ground and the precautions that you had to take simply as a journalist, I mean, what do you think about this?
Well, we only got within 90 miles because we had protective gear, but, we didn't know what we were dealing with. And that was one of the biggest complaints. Even the U.S. military was complaining to the Japanese government at the time. They weren't getting the true numbers. And what some people are saying is, has it been this bad from the beginning? And how are you going to fix this 6-foot hole? I mean, a robot only lasted an hour or so because the radiation level is so high. And we really don't all know also what this radioactive water is doing to the Pacific, Jen. And I think a lot of people are very concerned about that. They continue to monitor fish off of Japan. There's still areas you're not allowed to fish in, but that water, as we know, moves towards the west coast of the U.S.
I haven't thought about it for several years, and now certainly we are. We're going to have to follow up on this. Adam, thank you.
It has become grimly evident that this Japanese catastrophe has now reached the western states of the United States, like Hawaii, Washington State, Oregon, and California. The proof is not only in those states' coastline, Pacific Ocean water supply, which can be measured with the proper instruments. It's also showing its pervasive effects in the ocean life as well.
This next item made a lot of U.S. consumers sit up and take notice today. Bluefin tuna caught off the California coast have been found to contain elevated levels of radioactive matter dating back to the Japanese earthquake and tsunami that led to that nuclear accident at the Fukushima power plant. I'll report tonight from NBC's Miguel Almaguer.
Today at the San Pedro Fish Market in Southern California, Don Cadota inspects the catch of the day and stressed his fish are safe to eat.
The word radiation creates fear in people.
The 15 bluefin tuna caught and tested off California's coast last summer showed low levels of radiation, but still 10 times higher than normal. Scientists say it's the first time a fast-moving migrating fish has been shown to carry radioactivity from Japanese water.
Hundreds of thousands of fish, at least, have mysteriously and sadly been found washed ashore or floating dead in the water. Whales have beached themselves. Sea otters have been found bleeding from their ears, nose, and/or from their eyes. As well, they've been found with missing spots of hair all over their bodies. Meanwhile, U.S. concerned citizens have taken it upon themselves to buy proper radiation detection equipment and have gone out to the coastline of the aforementioned United States Western Territories and measured the higher than healthy and acceptable radiation levels on the coastline, as well as many supermarket seafood areas in these locations. The radiation that is being emitted from the seafoods in many U.S. West Coast supermarkets is alarming. It covers a wide variety of commercialized seafood favorites, which many may find are contaminated, like shellfish, clams, tuna, squid, anchovies, sea bass, eel, shark, flounder, Red Sea catfish, mackerel, salmon, swordfish, trout, kelpfish, sawfish, sardines, herring, perch, pike, and seaweed, which is often used for making sushi, salads, and other dishes. Back in November 2016, Fukushima suffered an earthquake of 6.9 to 9.0 on the Richter scale, depending on who you ask, which certainly increased the problems at the defunct nuclear power plant and the environment. Many concerned countries in the area and around the world are saying that Japan's officials aren't being totally honest and transparent about the intelligence concerning the disaster. However, what is known is that, reportedly, according to many mainstream media news leading outlets, $300 billion will be needed in about 40 years, which is 4 decades, at least, will be necessary to fix and clean up the nuclear plant's disaster, as well as other affected areas. Now, in reference to many mainstream news media reports saying that on the west coast of the United States, there is only a small increase in the amount of radiation that is being detected, I would encourage you not to believe that. Why, you may ask? Well, with you just using your common sense, like I've done, after logging in many hours researching this gigantic problem, I came to the realization that because Fukushima's nuclear plant has been gushing 300 to 400 tons of radioactive toxic wastewater per day into the Pacific Ocean for 6 years as of this report. And when considering that the Pacific Ocean's currents, which hyper transports vast amounts of water towards the east, destined for the west coast of the United States, as well as when adding in the wind's velocity, most surely it's a bold-faced lie when we in the public are told that the radiation levels are minimal or low, and right now there is nothing to be concerned about. That, in fact, is fake news. Again, it's been for 6 years, which is about 2,190 days that this nuclear catastrophe has been ongoing, while gushing out toxic radioactive wastewater, with its toxic particles also being sprayed around by the undersurf currents, wind, clouds containing large amounts of radioactive rainwater, etc. Moreover, if you check, you will also find the United States doesn't have an official department that is tasked or obligated with the responsibility to go out with qualified, experienced personnel and measure the coastline's radioactive standing. The EPA in the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency, is an agency that is supposed to take the lead and the responsibility to take care of and monitor such problems. Well, one would think so. However, the EPA, in fact, is not and has not been tasked with this undertaking and is not legally responsible. Believe it and still research it. This is why our officials don't really have a clue on what is conclusively actuality, because our supposed officials are not testing for the radiation levels in the West Coast Ocean or along the coastline of the western states of the nation. Sure, they may send out different scientists from said universities in the United States, or these universities may decide to go out after contacting the EPA and do their own independent research. However, these universities and these scientists at the universities are not obligated to do so, just like the EPA isn't obligated to do so. The affected areas currently that have to do with this radiation level sweeping through their area is Hawaii, Washington State, Oregon, and California. It has been reported by the mainstream media news outlets that if any of the rods inside of Fukushima's plant touch, then there would be an explosion which would be so enormous, powerful, and deadly that it very well will be likely that the whole west coast of the USA, including some neighboring states like Arizona, Nevada, and Idaho, would have to be evacuated. On YouTube and other video publishing websites, you can see a plethora of concerned U.S. citizens reporting on this important topic themselves by recording video footage, and some of them even use a Geiger counter, which is an instrument often used to measure radiation levels. They use a Geiger counter while on the coastline measuring the emitting of the radiation from fish, sand, seaweed, and other beached organic items. As well, some of these great activists also visit food supermarkets outside and inside markets which sell seafood, and they measure the radiation level of them while video recording their tests and findings in real time.
Radiation levels at one of Fukushima's nuclear power stations is at its highest level since the tsunami-triggered meltdown nearly 6 years ago. Tokyo Electric Power, or TEPCO, is reporting that atmospheric readings inside Daiichi's reactor number 2 are as high as 530 sieverts an hour. To put that in perspective for you, a human that is exposed to a single dose of 10 sieverts would die in a couple of weeks. The levels being recorded here are 53 times that. TEPCO says it's possible melted fuel has leaked through the pressure vessel. The discovery is going to seriously challenge the efforts to safely dismantle this plant.
Well, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, put out new guidelines today governing how much radioactivity can be allowed in our drinking water in the event of a nuclear emergency. But there are major revisions following our investigation into the EPA's plan. Senior investigative reporter Stephen Stock joins us now with the latest. Stephen.
Jessica, last fall we found that the EPA was considering raising the acceptable levels of radiation in drinking water thousands of times higher than the current Safe Drinking Water Act standards. Today, with this, that became a reality, this 111-page Protective Action Guide Manual. EPA officials tell us these new Protective Action Guidelines, or PAGs, were prompted by the massive tsunami in Japan back in 2011. A tsunami that wiped out the coolant system at the nuclear reactor at Fukushima, releasing tons of radioactive material into the environment. Now the EPA has made those guidelines final and official. EPA officials told us these PAGs are not law, are meant to give advice to local emergency management officials around the nation, and are to be used only in a major national nuclear emergency. According to the EPA's Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Office of Water, Joel Beauvais, the new PAG is, quote, meant to provide a non-regulatory benchmark that can help state and local officials deal with an emergency for a short-term period. They don't affect longer term. They don't affect any regulatory standards. We're very clear about that.
There's no way that can't put people at risk.
But the director of UC Santa Cruz's Program on Environmental and Nuclear Policy says the new PAGs contradict themselves in several places, leaving many questions about public safety.
Do we really want a situation where hundreds of thousands of people are required to drink contaminated water?
Director Daniel Hirsch is adamant that these new rules would extend for more than a year and would be used for more than just a major emergency.
If you go over the Safe Drinking Water Act, for example, in Flint, Michigan, for the lead, we provide people with bottled water. And what this is now saying is that if it was plutonium or strontium or cesium at Flint, Michigan, and it was 1,000 times the Safe Drinking Water Act levels, we would not protect them.
Daniel Hirsch also says these contradictions leave open the possibility that the Safe Drinking Water Act itself could be ignored, something EPA officials told me today they adamantly deny. One group in Washington has already filed suit over this proposal, and New York State's Attorney General has told me he's not ruling anything out, and he may file suit to stop this as well. We'll stay on top of it. Jessica, Raj.
Please research the topics Fukushima, radiation, West Coast USA, Fukushima, EPA, Japan, toxic seafood in U.S. markets and restaurants on the West Coast. In this upload's information description area will be links and other details for you to patronize and scrutinize. With the TRC IC News Edition, for the Wild News Report, I'm your concrete jungle reporter, Q Pate. Thank you for stopping by. been a Topkats Pride Wild News Edutainment Report.